fighting, guys, it's one of those skills that genuinely dictates your success as a Fortnite player. Let me explain, right? If you guys are in a tournament game, for example, it is a super crucial tournament game, game 8, game 9, and some team just decides to key you because they need surge, for example, some crazy reason. Maybe they don't need anything. Maybe they're dumb. Maybe they just want to key you for no reason, right? It happens all the time, and you guys know it all too well. And you don't know how to box fight. It's the difference between surviving and staying in that tournament game and getting that top 2 or top 1 or even, top 3, or you're sent back to the lobby and you choke your entire tournament just off that one mistake. Like, everything else you did was good, but that one mistake is the difference between success and failure. If you guys find yourself not being exceptional at box fighting, this video is absolutely for you. Watch it all the way to the end. Take some notes if you have to. Really make sure you absorb it. Watch some parts twice. Make sure you absolutely understand every piece of content that I put in this video, because I specifically made this video for people that need to learn how to box fight and need to learn how to fight better. Because believe it or not, like, I've coached one of my first students, Supero. He was an exceptional box fighter. That's why he's able to drop 25 kills in arena, no problem. It's the same reason why some pros are able to drop 25 kills. I want to mention that some pros are absolutely horrible at box fighting. They actually don't know how to do it. And so I want to explain that concept as well and why that exists and how they can also fix it. So what's really important about box fights, guys, is you just need to understand. If you don't understand what you're doing and it's all feeling and you're just doing it just cause, then you'll never be a great box fighter. But if you understand the reasons behind why you do certain things over the other option, then yes, you will absolutely become a great box fighter. It's not that hard, right? I just want to put out free, valuable information because that's something that's lacking in the YouTube space right now. So let's just get on with the video. I don't want to do too long of an intro, but before the video, guys, I do want to mention this mouse. This is something I've been selling for a while. I don't sell courses. I don't sell master classes at the moment, but I do sell this on the side so that you can still get the information for free. But if this is something that you absolutely want to get, I've been using this mouse myself. Like, look, this is literally the mouse I have, and I've been using on Fortnite for over a year, right? And it's been genuinely a pleasant experience because over other options, it is significantly better. I have the Logitech G Pro Superlight. I have the Model O. I have other mice, but I still use this one because I particularly crafted it to be a specific type, so it's actually the best mouse that I've ever used. But yeah, I don't want to drag on this intro too long. Enjoy the video, guys. There's timestamps down below if you want to skip to certain parts. Guys, so in the intro, I mentioned how I think some pros just don't know how to box fight properly. And maybe Cease is not trying, but I think box fighting is one of those things that should be melted into your memory to the point where even if you're distracted by stream, even if you're distracted by talking or distracted by something else, even if you're not trying, it should still be automated to the point where it's like walking or doing something else. You're multitasking, you're still doing it properly. It's one of those things, right? And so I think we should analyze this because I do think there are some mistakes that we should cover, right? And we can learn from this. The first thing when you're back in this wall, obviously, is like, ideally you would place a cone on your box in the case that there is a guy in here. And you do know there's a guy in here because of the footprint. And so one thing I would want to mention is, like, there's several things that are just missing. One thing is diagonal box fighting. And the biggest reason I think diagonal box fighting is crucial because there's a threat. As you're smacking, brick walls, fully built brick walls take 3 pickaxe swings to break. And during that process, the enemy can totally open up and box you in. And they can cone you. They can do a whole bunch of stuff, right? Like, you don't even have a stair to place if they edit and cone and full box you here. Right? So that's the issue. I think, honestly, you should actually take the time. And it doesn't add that much time to your aggressiveness. Because I heard that counter argument. They're like, oh, it takes so much time to, like, set up the diagonal box fight. It really doesn't, right? All you need to do is place a floor and a wall right here. Just to make sure he doesn't edit on you that way. And that's it. And then you continue, right? And it essentially adds half a second max if you're slow. So my point is, I think he should be actually standing here instead of standing in the area that he is currently standing. I think it would just offer a lot more safety and just be more consistent that way. The second thing is that after he knows there's someone in here, he does sneak a cone in, so that's a positive. But he pumps the wall, which is a really good tactic, and a lot of pros do this. They pump the wall and then switch to your pickaxe, because that process is faster than switching to your pickaxe and pickaxing twice. Right? You would rather, if you already have a shotgun out, pump the wall once and then pickaxe once, and that should break the wall, especially a fresh wall like this one. You should be able to just break it right away. So he pumps the wall, pickaxes it, grabs it. Then my biggest issue is one of the most biggest fundamentals of box fighting in general is peeking and peeking properly. And so one of the things that people should know is peeking properly has 2 parts to it. The first part is your edit. Cease has that part correct. That part is completely fine. That is good. He does the proper edit. He does the peanut butter. What is the issue with Cease's peak here? The biggest issue with Cease's peak is that the edge of the wall that he makes is not aligned with the enemy, right? And so in this case, the enemy can actually see Cease perfectly, like perfectly fine. And so in this case, the enemy probably has their gun out, just chilling, just waiting, ready to go. But look what Cease has to do. Cease actually has an extra task, which is to pull out his gun and then, like, talk it, be ready. You know, like, there's a gun swap delay at hand here. And so every time you make an edit, you have to make sure that you're undercover or this line kind of matches like right here. And the way you can do that is the second part, which is movement. Make sure you're standing at the correct spot on your tile relative to the edit that you made, such that you're not exposed right away and you're not doing a dry peek. And so the problem here is that Cease is very susceptible to getting hit and the opponent punishes correctly. Right? So even if you reset really, really fast, like Cease did, it doesn't matter because the opponent actually has a shot ready before you do. Because they're not the one who had to make the edit, right? I think there's an opportunity here to do this peek properly and just absolutely be able to just get free damage on your opponent. And then same mistake. Exact same mistake I described. The window itself is a completely fine edit. There's nothing wrong with the window. It's your movement. And so you could either choose to do the right window, or like then you would actually be in the right spot. You could actually right hand peek it, or you could do the middle window, but you need to be standing correctly, right? So let's talk about this. When he does a middle window here, the problem is he's standing in the middle of the box. That doesn't make a lot of sense, right? You're just going to be doing a super, super dry peek, and it doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of box fighting at all. I feel like it's deserved to get hit twice here. And so this is what I meant in the intro by a lot of pros just don't box fight properly. And Cease is not the only one. There's a lot of pros that I can name that just sort of fight willy-nilly, and they try to outpace their opponent. But what's better than outpacing your opponent is box fighting properly and outpacing your opponent. Because there's nothing about box fighting properly, especially the way that I describe it, slows down your approach or makes it harder to kill your opponent in terms of time. Kill them just as fast as long as you make sure you do the important check. And he's actually rather lucky that he's only 3 HP at this bottom left right here. And in another world, the opponent hits just slightly harder and he's just dead. So my mic stand actually broke middle of the video, but this is the transition into the next part where I'm going to be talking about the specifics of diagonal box fighting and mostly just the basics of it and how it works. And one of the things I do want to mention is when you watch the video, understand that the whole benefit of diagonal box fighting is the extra spacing that you get. And also you find a natural right hand peek on your opponent after you take their wall. Also, you have an extra piece, an extra wall that I mentioned as the strong side that you can continuously reset. So that's why diagonal box fighting is actually really, really good. And so that's why I recommend constantly using that in your fights. So let's say, let's do black and red. Okay, so black is you and red is enemy. Okay, so let's say this is you and let's say this is enemy. This is one position where it's really good to box fight. It's called diagonal box fighting. Okay, it's really simple. Another position is like one tile away. Right, so this is like neutral box or your box, doesn't really matter, and this is enemy box. What you can do from here is you can have peanut butter, you can long range wall take, and then you can fight them from here. This one is more important to know. This one's useful to know. Like this is an addition to the fundamentals, but honestly, you can never know this and you'll be fine. Okay? So for this one, it's really important to understand. So let's talk about the terms that I use. So diagonal box fighting, this is your strong side wall, strong side, and this is your weak side wall. Okay? You have that in your head. Your left hand wall is your weak side. You generally don't want to do this because it's left hand peek, right? You only want to do this to go for like counter shots, but you don't want to aggress from here if possible. Sometimes you can, because sometimes like in a scrim, for example, the whole lobby's like here. Then it's a little weird to do it from here because they clear you. So then you use, you know, there's some exceptions. But for the most part, this is strong side, this is weak side because of a right hand. And then if you look at the opponent, what's the case? Weak side right here, right? And then strong side right here in terms of their perspective. Right? Yeah. They all, like, everyone wants to go in a diagonal box fighting scenario around to the right. Same with me. Around to the right. No problem. Right? So the idea is simple. Okay? Do you understand what gun swap play is? I've talked a lot about it.
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
Let's go through it again. Okay? So every time you make an edit, every time you pull out your gun, well, you have to pull out your gun after you make an edit. That's the whole point of it. Is every time you do an action in Fortnite, an edit, a reset, a build, you have to pull out your gun right after. It takes up the animation. And an animation is approximately 0.4 seconds for most shotguns. Okay? But during this time, a lot of people, even if you're not that good, should be able to, right? You should be able to shoot reset or just shoot build or something of that nature. You should be able to block. Like literally try to hit me as much as you can. Like, I can do this forever.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not that good at reaction. I'm 24 years old, I'm a boomer, I'm almost 25. Okay, that's my point. It's like, it's actually easy to do this. You just need to practice it. It's not a reaction time. I mean, it is reaction based, yes. But 0.4 seconds is good enough. Most human beings have a reaction time of 0.25. That's on the worst end. Some people have 0.15, some people have 0.2. But no one has like 0.3, unless you're just bad. You just need to train it. But you can literally try this for the next 30 minutes, you'll never hit me. Unless I truly make a mistake. That's my point. And so, the idea is, that's what you need to train in your brain. where it's very simple to like box fight. You just need to go on the strong side, ideally, and try to pressure them that way, right? So now, obviously, what you're gonna want to do is right here, right? Yeah. So let's practice what I just taught you. Try to reset. Now, in order to reset, you want to make a good edit. You don't want to make like stuff like this, right? You see my edit that I made? Right? This is bad. Why is this bad? Do you know?
I'm wide open. You're wide open.
That's actually not the issue, right? Because like when I did this one, I'm wide open too. No.
Oh.
The problem is it's hard to reset. It takes longer for you to look at it. It's hard. You have to trap. Yeah, exactly. Right?
Yeah.
See the difference? Like, if you try to do that thin edit and look at people, you have to flick far. And your job as a box fighter in general is to make stuff easy for yourself so you can focus on the task at hand, right? Very important. Yeah. Because if you make it hard for yourself, you're just hurting yourself. It's like, it doesn't actually hurt me at all. It's just hurting yourself. So, 2 acceptable edits is the one you just did, right? And this one. This one is also, okay? And I would always do it towards the corner because you always have a right-hand peek. Don't worry about this edit. You're just making an opening. You're right-hand peeking this.
Yeah.
Right? So it doesn't matter, right? What edit you make. You just want to make it something that's a little bit open, so you have room to see, and also room to pickaxe, but also something that's good enough and easy enough to reset. That's the goal. So yeah, diagonal box fighting, right? So this is strong side, this is weak side, okay? And what's really important is you need to make sure you are trying your best to play on the strong side, but at the same time, you're ready for the edit. Because if they have their edit open, you reset, right? And if they don't have their edit open, you can just swing forever, no problem. And eventually you'll take their wall. Once you take their wall, you edit the wall right away, cone them, and go for the shot using this point right here as the right-hand peak. Right? It's that simple, right? And the best part is, like, the better you get at this diagonal box fighting part, the better you will be at arena fights. And it might not make a lot of sense. We're like, oh, box fighting, arena, they're completely different. They are different, but you have to realize, like, when you have an advantage or you are losing HP and they are full HP, it always goes back to the box fight. Okay, so that was diagonal box fighting, but what about peaks? Well, I saved the best for last, and I just wanted the last part to be the most in-depth part for anyone watching still, and I really want you guys to focus in on this part because arguably, out of everything that I've talked about so far, peaks is the most important thing. This will dictate whether you get a fair trade, meaning they hit you and you hit them, or you get a free trade, which basically means you get to hit them for free, and they haven't touched you at all. And so peaks can dictate that. And then understanding peaks at the very basic level and why they're good is super, super important. And that's what this next part covers. The 2 underrated things about peaks is number 1, movement, right? But then like the immediate question is like, how do I know where to move? Like, do I go left? Do I go right? Usually the left direction is like by default better. Because if you want a right-hand peek, you want to be more to the left behind the cover. If you want more accurate movement, what you need to consider, this is the second unknown thing about peaks that a lot of people don't know, is you need to process where the enemy is. Like, you actually need to look at them. Right? You can't look at the wall. It's like the equivalent of, like, if you're playing soccer, you're not supposed to look at the ball. You're supposed to look forward. You need to look where you're going. And in Fortnite, the equivalent of that is you need to look at the opponent. You need to not look at the edit that you're making. That should be automatic by now. And if it's not automatic, then you need to do your routine more. So those are the 2 things, movement and awareness of what the enemy is doing. So in this case, we'll continue and watch this part. And I'll try to break it down again. This is obviously my video, but I'll break it down again in my own voice to show you like what Norley is actually doing. If in doubt, in terms of where you should move, before you release the edit, just go left. 99% of the time, you should just go left to find right-hand peaks. Right? So now, what does he have? He has a right-hand peak. Right, so this is movement. This is it comes down to it. You don't want to edit the stair right in the box, right? There's 2 reasons for that. Because if you make a bad edit, even if it's a right hand, you won't have an easy reset, right, to block the next shot. Because peaks doesn't actually guarantee you won't get hit. They just guarantee you get the first hit. You'll get the first shot, and then they'll hit you back, usually. But if you have a reset, you can deny that second shot from the opponent. So just like that, he peeks him, shoots, and then resets the wall, and then like by habit spins around to block off like third parties. That's just like a habit that he has. And then because he hears someone else, there's a second player in this building, so he goes back, makes some space, and again looks to go for a peek, places a cone so he can't block off, and peeks. This is not something you should do by default, right? You shouldn't try to do this all the time because sometimes they'll actually be ready, right? Because the entire time, this is not actually a good peek. And then kills this guy, obviously, because the reason he jumps in, by the way, number 1, to get away from the other guy, and number 2, to, like, finish the kill, because you have HP advantage. He hits him white, right? So that's why he does that. One more time. Right, goes forward to get away from the second kill, because he's keeping a tab on him. But in terms of peaks don't matter anymore. Why? Because the HP is too low. You got information on that guy, you hit him white, okay, let me go in. That's a mistake that a lot of people make, actually. Once they learn peaks, they peak all the time. That's not what I'm telling you to do, at all. I'm saying just peek to get the initial trade. So let's say the initial trade is only 20. I don't count that to be significant damage, so I'm just gonna keep peeking. You keep peeking to get them low, and then once they're low, you throw peeks out of the window if you can. If you can full commit to them, do it. Let's watch this part. This part's actually interesting. So sometimes it's okay to not peek if the opponent's not looking at you. That's why it's important, like I said before, to look at the enemy, right? Don't look at your edits, look at the enemy. Because Noah really keeps his eyes on the ball. That's what he does. He doesn't really do anything else. So in this case, I want you to notice how quickly did this happen. It's really hard to tell, but where's this guy looking in the wall? Low quality, so I don't.
There you go.
Yep, he's looking to the right. So what does Noah really do? Screw peeking, right? Just expose him. You don't really care. Let's expose his whole body and take a really nice shot. Now, obviously, right after like one shot, you should probably reset. Maybe after one shot, he's still not looking at you. Maybe you can go for 2 shots then, right? So it makes a lot of sense to sort of gauge whether or not you should reset based on the opponent. Now, obviously, you're a controller player, which means you can't reset that easily, right? So what I would do is not try to maximize the damage. Just go for 1 shot and then reset hold. Like, don't try to like wait until he looks at you. Does that make sense? Just go for 1 shot and then just reset, because you can't reset as fast as PC players. What I would sort of do, if there was a spectrum in terms of like play style, and it was like this, and this side is peaks, right? And this side is get in. PC players are like, keyboard and mouse players are somewhere here. You should be here, but you should still know how to do this. I'm not, this is what you were playing like. Or like here, or just actually you weren't even playing like that. You weren't even on this spectrum because you didn't do peaks or get in. You just did bad peaks. So it's important to understand both and understand when to do them. But in general, I think as a controller player, I genuinely encourage this, especially in the spray meta, is you should be somewhere to the left. So you're paying attention, HP advantage. I want you to notice something else. Is this a good peak that's coming up? I'm gonna ask you this. This one right here.
Oh.
Yeah. Why?
Oh yeah, it could be, yeah.
It's decent, but it's not like Noah really cares to go all the way to the left. This guy's literally 1 shot no matter what. Noah really doesn't care. Also, pay attention to the distance. This guy's so far away that Noah really's not in threat of getting 1 pumped. Right? Even if he gets like pump aimbotted, the other guy's probably gonna hit him for like 50 because of how far away he is. But the biggest reason, if you want to just simplify it, is you're right. It's a health advantage. That's it. But then that's the way to end the fight quickly. Make sure you can just clean this guy up and then take here. Now watch this. This is the whole example. The whole reason I pulled up this video. So first of all, pre-fire, okay, that's pretty self-explanatory. And then look, right? What I want you to understand is obviously this is the right-hand peak, but look how far away he's to the left. What I mean by that, let's say this is the enemy. You don't have to start the window right here. You're right, this is the right-hand peak, but if the enemy's like naturally moving to the right, like this, you're right. He's gonna see you in literally about like half a second. If they just move an inch like this, it's the whole peak is gone. So instead of doing this, why not do this? And then, like, let's say they're full box, right? So you can take your time. So in this case, it's better to do this, and then make sure, like, you want to make sure your wall is not weak, so you can just spray through. But if it's not weak, you just do this, and then slowly, this is you. You slowly inch to the right, slowly, until he's exposed, and then you shoot him, reset, hold. Make sense? That's what you want to do. So there are a lot of people make this mistake. They try to perfect it on the first second. You don't need to. You don't need to do this. You can do this if you see him moving like this. Okay, fine, I can do this. But if he's moving towards the right, this actually is dangerous. So that's why he does this super far to the right edit, because it doesn't matter. Right? And now, obviously, because of the simple fact that this is counterclockwise. If you watch my mouse, this is counterclockwise around the like pole in the middle. You will always find right hand peak. So if you're in doubt of where you want to go in terms of like how to approach the enemy, go around the right. Let's say I want to draw another diagram, and there's a bunch of boxes. This is bird's eye view again. Bunch of boxes like this. Let's say my enemy is sitting right here. Right? For whatever reason, he's out of mats. Okay, and you want to sort of approach him, and you're sitting right here. You want to go counterclockwise, because that's the way you find right hand peak. So if you walk like this and you're both out of mats or whatever, you can find this right hand peak on this edge right here. Whereas if you go like this, he's gonna right hand peek you. And this works like in vertical as well. Like, so if he's on height, if we're watching the side view now, if he's on height like on a cone, he's sitting up here, you don't want to go like this. Make sense? That's counterclockwise, or clockwise rather. You don't want to go around the left, because then he's gonna see you and he's gonna right hand peek you on this like edge right here. He's gonna right hand peek you. You don't want that. Instead, you want to go like this. Make sense? Around,
yeah.
if you want to ramp up, you want to stay close so it's hard for him to see you. You maybe this is the box, and then you place a ramp like this. Right? You want to go around like that, and then you're gonna naturally find the right hand peak. There's very important decisions here. Actually, I'll show you an example right now. Actually, obviously, Mr. Savage is like just chasing him naturally, but let's see which way he decides to go and why it's just nicer. So now he's going which way? Right or left? Counterclockwise or clockwise? He's going.
He's just right.
Yeah, he's just right. Yeah, let's keep it simple. Yeah, exactly. He's just going around the right, which gives him natural right hand peeks on any walls he wants to swing on. Right? If he wants to swing on this wall, he hits right hand peek on the wall. That's the thing about swinging. That's why you diagonal box fight. Is every time you swing on a wall, you actually want to right hand peek the wall, right? So that it, like if they edit on you, they're gonna have a hard time seeing you in the first place. Yeah, keep going around right, and then he just literally continues like that over and over and over. And the opponent's gonna have a, if he wants to swing, or if he wants to edit on Mr. Savage, he's gonna have a hard time doing it. Okay, very simple example. So let's talk about certain types of peaks. Obviously, this is the most common edit, but you can also do windows, right? Biggest thing about a window is you don't want to hug the front. Do me a favor and stand far away from the window. Okay, stand like right here. Okay, can you see me?
No.
At all?
I can see your like elbow now.
Yeah. So who has right hand peek?
You do.
Exactly. Why is it that I can't shoot you?
Because I'm so far back.
Yeah, and I'm also really close to the wall. More I back up. See that? I haven't moved my mouse or my cursor at all. See that? So that's the reason. Like sometimes if you're too close to the edit or the surface that you're right hand peeking, that means like even the left hander can see you. Another peek, right? Cone peeks. So if I have you full box like this, right? And I want to sort of make sure I don't, you know, get the wall taken. Maybe I know you're looking at the wall and you're like trying to replace it as soon as I edit. I'm gonna make a wide edit and cone peek like this. Right? And then reset. That's a nice peek as well. You can use different surfaces for peeks. It doesn't have to be just exclusively walls. But in general, you just want to be as far back as possible before you let go. So yeah, I've talked about this peek, right? But in this case, you want to be either really far back before you let go so I can't see you. And then you can do stuff like this, right? After you shoot. And then I can just go like, right? So like one thing to understand, especially on controller, resets are harder than placing build. So if you can place a build, try to shoot place instead of reset.